It's an SEC showdown down in Oxford as Ole Miss and Arkansas get set to do battle. We are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game between the Rebels and the Razorbacks. Hello, I'm Chris Phillips. He's Cole Thompson. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Guys, as always, before we get going, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast. Where we get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. And as always, we are powered by our friends over at FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/SECU to join today and get started with $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Once again, that's FanDuel.com/SECU to get $250 in bonus bets today. SEC on SEC down in Oxford, Mississippi, Vaught Hemingway Stadium, the location, as Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss Rebels welcome Sam Pitman and the Arkansas Razorbacks down to Oxford. Once again, we are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this matchup. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips. Joining me, as he always does, my good friend, my partner in crime, one of the best in the business, Cole the Bear Thompson. Bear, what's going on, man? Appreciate you taking the time and excited to break down what feels like it's going to be in a really exciting matchup with you.
Yeah, remember in the old days when we were talking about Ole Miss and Arkansas fighting for the number 3 or number 4 spot in the SEC West and the wildness that was that conference from 2012 to 2022? This game always has something wacky go its way, or something that we talk about on the next Sunday, whether it's the Alex Collins to Hunter, or the Hunter Henry to Alex Collins pitch and catch, whether it's the 56-20 blowout that we saw last season, Jackson Dart for the Heisman Trophy campaign, over 500 passing yards, or the 52-51 score back in 2021. This game always just has bullet points, talking points. And the best part is you're getting a healthy Arkansas with a quarterback that has lived up to all of the billing so far, and now is a spot on the national stage to set the tone. But on the flip side, hey, Austin Simmons, you cut down on the turnovers. You may be proven why you were the best young quarterback in college football moving forward.
Yeah, a lot on the line here early. Obviously, you want to win your SEC opener. Bear, Ole Miss has already done that as they took down Kentucky last week for Arkansas. This is game number 1 in SEC play after blowout wins over Alabama A&M and Arkansas State, of course. Bear, this game taking place Saturday night, September the 13th, 6 o'clock Central on ESPN down there in Oxford, Mississippi at Vaught Hemingway Stadium. Ole Miss is an 8.5-point favorite. The over-under set at 62.5. If you watched last night's overtime drive, you know how Cole and I feel about that total and the way this game more than likely is going to go. Bear, I know you were a little bit surprised when we got going the series history. Arkansas leads it all time, 37-31-1. The last meeting last year, of course, 2024. Ole Miss won that game by a final score of 63-31. So you talk about a lot of offense, won almost 100 points a season ago. Bears, we talked top storylines coming into this one. Let's start on the Arkansas side. They're really exciting right now. Taylor Green has put up video game numbers. I want to start with Taylor Green because you mentioned a couple weeks ago he's going to make you say some things that a little bit irresponsible. Certainly he has done that and then some in these first 2 weeks. You know, again, how much can you take away from it? Alabama A&M, Arkansas State, although last week I know there was a lot of hype from the Red Wolves side. This could be an upset or this could be a close game, and the Hogs had no willingness to oblige in that and to obligate in what, again, that being a down-to-the-wire contest. And a lot of it comes down, obviously, to Taylor Green, what you have under center. You know, I hate to oversimplify this thing, Bear, but if Arkansas is going to come in, and let's call it what it is, it'd be pulling the upset, no question, especially when you think about what the expectations were for the Hogs coming in. But if they're going to do that, the key for them in this one's about the same in every other game in which they play, and that is Taylor Green. It starts under center, him balling out, having a big game, giving him a chance. He needs guys around him to step up, obviously. I know we're excited about some of the skill position players, but it starts with the man under center for Arkansas.
You can say that you didn't learn much about Taylor Green in this Arkansas offense taking on Alabama A&M and Arkansas State. Here's what I learned. Year 1 to year 2 prognosis from under Bobby Petrino is well and evident because of the things that we are watching Taylor Green do. is phenomenal. It's decision-making. It's stepping up in the pocket. It's reading the field and knowing when to tuck and run. It's little things like not throwing into double coverage. It's making sure that you create second chance opportunities. And it's why you've seen him lead the SEC in passing touchdowns. He currently has 10. It's why he leads the SEC in completion percentage, 71.9%, why he's number one among active quarterbacks in average yards per play at 9.8, number one in passer rating at 205.5, and you throw in that mobility factor. He's number two on the team, and he currently leads the Razorbacks in rush attempts with 18, 192 yards, 1 rushing touchdown, 4 runs of over 30 yards downfield, and 10.7 yards of play. We're watching him grow into the quarterback that Bobby Petrino envisioned when he was at Boise State. And remember, when Bobby Petrino signed on to become the Arkansas offensive coordinator, one of the selling points that he wanted in the addendum to be the next OC, I get to pick my quarterback. I will go with the guy that I think is best fit to run my system, and you're going to be okay with it. And he could have gone anywhere in the country, and he went out to Boise, Idaho, watching as the Broncos won a Mountain West title and said, that guy is good enough to run my system. Last season, we saw glimpses of it. Right now, we're seeing continuity of it. And I think the good thing about this is there's still so much untapped unknown when it comes to the wide receiver room that everyone has an opportunity to be that guy. Like Omega Blake right now leads the team with 185 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. But 3 other receivers, CJ Brown, Raylan Sharp, Jalen Brown, they all each have 2 touchdowns apiece. So it's a very multifaceted offense that allows you to trust your quarterback to figure out who is his primary target on that Saturday. And then if all else fails, you got to factor in with the mobility aspect of things. That's an area where Ole Miss has struggled up to this point. They have been phenomenal in pass coverage. They have been less than stellar when it comes to the rushing attack. They're allowing 181.5 yards of play. That's 114th in the country. Knowing that you have a mobile quarterback that has a cannon of an arm and has really worked out the mechanical instincts of things that were hindering his success last year, you got to be sitting on cloud 9 if you're Arkansas. Healthy roster, healthy offense, and a quarterback that has kept the ball mostly out of harm's way going into a system where last weekend there were moments where you felt like Kentucky was about to take control and maybe run away with this thing out in Lexington.
Bear, you mentioned the passing game, and I think there's a reason to be excited for it. I look at the running game, too, in this matchup specifically, because you just talked about Ole Miss. Yes, they're sitting there at 2-0. Yes, you beat Kentucky, but Kentucky was able to run it on them a good bit. I think you look at what Mike Washington's done for Arkansas, 18 from 195. Heck, the guy's averaging over 10 yards a carry, touchdown on the season. Taylor Green is your second leading rusher, only trails by 3 yards. He's been really good escaping the pocket. We feel good about what Braylon Russell is. I'm curious to see if Arkansas is able to get it going on the ground, and if Ole Miss is not able to contain one Taylor Green, it could be a very, very long day for this Ole Miss defense. Let's just go ahead and get it out there, Bear. You and I think there's going to be points in this football game because there has to be. I could go the other way. We've been talking a lot about the Hogs. I love the matchup with Lane Kiffin against T. Will for Arkansas. And I love T. Will over at Arkansas. I think he does a great job for them. But I think from a personnel standpoint, again, Xavier Sori in the middle of that defense is a really good player. But I do think Ole Miss should be able to have some success. Now, what is the status of Austin Simmons? Is there something more to that, to this injury that we don't know about? I would assume that he's fine until we hear otherwise. I think it even sounded like he could have came in that game or back in that game at the end of the game last weekend. So I think he should be okay. So as long as he is, that's the thing. This Ole Miss team, they've got some loose ends defensively. They're figuring something out. When you have a guy like Austin Simmons, who I thought, I don't want to over-exaggerate the Kentucky game, but I thought grew up a little bit from early in that game as the game progressed. Made a couple early mistakes. He bounced back from it. I love what he's got at the weapons on the outside, some of these receivers they added from the portal. And, again, plenty of skill position players, I think, around him. And I just don't know what Arkansas really has on the defensive side, because I don't think you can really look at the first 2 weeks and draw that many conclusions from a personnel standpoint for them on that side of the football. So, Bear, you and I both obviously expecting a lot of points, and I think that both sides might be able to run the football at will. And it feels like this is going to be a game like who's able to hit more of those shots down the field. And, of course, it always comes down to which quarterback and which team can avoid the big mistakes. But this feels like to me it's going to be blow after blow after blow. This might be a whoever has the football last wins type of game.
Yeah, it's a boxing match, and it's a boxing match where you are going to take the most body shots, then you're going to have to get that sucker punch to go ahead and end the game. Like, that is what this matchup feels like for so many different things. I thought Mike Washington joining this running back room was a very under the radar move. And we didn't talk enough about him throughout all of spring, all of practice, all of fall intel, because we just assumed that Braylon Russell was the guy. He leaves in the portal, comes back on a new NIL deal, feels like he is going to be locked on in. And what's interesting is that the way that we saw this rushing attack last year with Jaquindon Jackson and Braylon Russell work, we're kind of getting that with Mike Washington and Braylon Russell. You want to see a little bit more from Russell. He did have that 7-yard touchdown run against Arkansas State last week in Little Rock, so he's starting to pick up some speed, but Mike Washington has just been on fire. It's the explosive plays. It's the run across the middle of the field. 7 runs of over 20 yards or more this season. He's averaging 10.8 yards a play. He also is getting a big-time role in the passing attack, had that touchdown against Alabama A&M. It feels like a really good replacement, just like we saw with Jaquindon Jackson replacing Rocket Sanders, now for Jaquindon Jackson and a guy that had FBS Group of 5 level experience. But this is going to be a rushing game. Like, I truly do believe that one thing that we don't talk enough about with Lane Kiffin's offense is they like to throw the football. They are not afraid to let it fly. They're a run-oriented team. They want to run to set up the pass. And they have that identity still because even though you no longer have guys like Henry Parrish Jr., you no longer have a Sean Judkins, you still have an identity to work for Kiffin's system with guys like Keelan Lacey. You have guys like Logan Diggs that can be very effective. You got Darian Taylor, who had that big rushing touchdown late in the game. So Damian Taylor, my apologies. But there's things to like about everyone has that set role. Third down rushes. Who is going to be my speed back? Who am I going to utilize in the open field? When I'm looking at a 2nd and 7 and I need to be able to get a guy that can do a little bit of everything, who is that focal point? Can I get him out of the backfield on swing patterns? Can I get him up the middle through the A-gap? And it feels like that Ole Miss has that identity. They're a very balanced offense right now. I think it's 53-47 run to pass over the first 2 games. And again, I think that is a blessing in disguise because if you know what you're going to do, which leads to this being a slugfest. And we didn't talk about this enough, 2 mobile quarterbacks. Austin Simmons is not afraid to tuck and run. We saw him hop on into the end zone. He finished number 2 on the team in the Kentucky game with 44 rushing yards, 3 runs over 10 yards downfield. And then you get Taylor Green and his mobility. So both defensive lines, I think, are going to be in for a very long afternoon. And this may simply be a game of who do you feel better about depth-wise that you can rotate on in, give your starters a breather, but you're not missing a beat. Because of when you go do those rotations, then we're going to see those shots downfield. Then we're going to see Austin Simmons try to connect with a Harrison Wallace or a Deuce Alexander. Then we're going to see a Omega Blake try to go ahead and lead the SEC in yards per game, or a CJ Brown or a Raylan Sharp. And both can happen because of, I just think if you're not able to get pressure into that backfield, it's going to give time for these quarterbacks to feel the pocket, wait for something to open up downfield. And they both got cannons, and they're both not afraid to let it fly.
I think you make a great point about the escapability, Bear, both quarterbacks. That's certainly for both. I'm sure both defensive coordinators aren't getting a lot of sleep this week in regards to how to contain the other guy. Because both guys are going to get theirs. It really is going to come down to, I think, which side is able to just at least limit the most of the other side. Because, again, you're going to get yours when you have these type of offenses and when you have the questions I think both have defensively. It's just, can we be bend but don't break? You know, something like in this game, Bear, like red zone efficiency, scoring touchdowns instead of field goals. That's going to be a huge thing because both teams are going to drive. And, you know, you're going to get beat if you're kicking. You're going to get beat if you're scoring 3. You're going to have to punch it in, get 7, make sure you're converting at a high rate. You know, Bear, looking at this game, zooming out a little bit, I think it's a huge game for both sides for maybe a little bit different reasons. For Ole Miss, I think you're still at this point a college football playoff hopeful, of course. Like everything's in front of you, obviously. You're 2-0, but, you know, this team wasn't talked about a ton in the preseason as being a dark horse to playoff, and I think a lot of that had to do with what happened last year, and people just, you know, after you didn't make it then, everybody kind of was like, okay, we're just going to forget about Ole Miss and sell all of that stock. I've said it many times throughout the offseason, Bear. I thought that this Ole Miss team, we talked about how ironic it would be. It'd be very Lane Kiffin to make it to the playoff this year, not last. But I think this is a team and a program that can do it this year. But it starts, you got to win a game like this. Got to protect your home field. It goes without saying. For Arkansas and Sam Pittman, a lot of feel-good vibes right now, right? A lot of feel-good vibes. And I think Hogs fans, which we love Hogs fans, love Rebels fans too, but Arkansas fans are looking for something to cling to in regards to some sort of optimism, right? They want – it's been fun the first 2 weeks. You've been able to feel good. Is there still – is the optimism justified, or was it a false sense of hope because of who you play the first 2 weeks? That's what you're going to find out, I think, against Ole Miss. Ole Miss isn't the elite of the elites in the SEC, but they're the best challenge by far you've had yet. And it's a great opportunity for Sam Pitman and company. If you're able to go on the road and win this football game, Bear, the shot in the arm that would be for this program to get off to that 3-0 start, win your first conference game. Maybe it makes road trips coming up, at Memphis look a little bit less daunting. Notre Dame, let's see what they look like against Texas A&M coming to town on your home field. Maybe there's a little bit rosier view of that game. And then obviously you get in the rest of your SEC slate. But huge game for both sides. There's high pressure, high intensity on both sides. And I think that's going to set up for, maybe instant classics taking it a step too far. But this one's going to be really, really entertaining.
Well, there's two things I look at from the Ole Miss side. Ole Miss, once again, had to go into the portal. They had to reinvent their roster with a lot of pieces from proven experience. Does the formula continue to work? Because as of right now, until we see complete and total regression at the wide receiver spot, on the defensive line, in the secondary, Lane Kiffin knows what he wants, and Lane Kiffin gets who he wants, develops them well better than any other coach in the past, sends them off to the NFL, and gets double-digit winning seasons. That's the formula in Oxford, and it's been working. And now, if you're an Ole Miss fan, you're tired of getting to that 10-win range and not having a playoff appearance next to your name. But still, this has been one of the better runs of Ole Miss football that we have seen in program history, and it's only going to get better because of Lane's not leaving. Like, there have been rumors about, hey, what happens if this job opens up? What happens if this job? He moved his family down there. Layla's down there now. His brother is next door neighbors with him. He's very content in Oxford, and Oxford loves Lane Kiffin. And honestly, it's one of the best jobs in college football because I think that there are realistic expectations there for what you have with the roster and the way that you've constantly been able to build the roster. But it's just another proof of concept. What I'm doing is working. What I'm going after and how I'm building this team and the identity of what this program's supposed to be. It's still the best is ahead of me. Like last season, I get it. We made some mistakes. We made some miscues. We had our fair share of struggles against Kentucky. But once you get us hot and rolling, watch the way we go. For Arkansas, you expected to win against Arkansas State. You expected to win against Alabama A&M. I don't know if people expected the offense to look as good as it has. I don't think if people expected them to have multiple receivers that could all be legit number one weapons. People in the offseason, all throughout fall intel, right here on this channel, said, watch out for this wide receiver room. You're going to be impressed by it. I have been. I've been impressed with what we've seen from Washington, what we've seen from Russell in a standpoint. The defense has gotten after two inferior teams, but still two teams. Now you get an opportunity to get that signature win for Sam Pitman. And it happens every year. It does. It could happen at home. It could happen on the road. But Sam Pitman finds a way to get that win that just convinces everybody he still has something in him. He still has that moment. What if it's early in the year? What if it's not the midway point when you're starting to have the conversations of what's the buyout? How are we going to look in another direction for a head coach? What would be the overall staff changes that we would make to keep a quarterback like Taylor Green here? You get the win early in the year, your narrative changes. And that's kind of where we are with Arkansas from, well, if we get to 7-5, are we going to keep him around? Is that going to be enough for us to say he's worthy of being our head coach too? Screw 7-5, 9-3, 10-2, college football playoff berth, signature win over Memphis, signature win over Texas A&M, signature win on the road against Tennessee, just like we beat Tennessee last year. All those things are possible because of our quarterback is delivering and the pieces around him are stepping on up. It's a momentous movement, and it's something that absolutely can be factually evident. And we've seen this time and time and time again in the world of college football, where a team that we don't talk enough about ends up getting that win, puts itself on the map. And now that they know the pressure is on, that they have to continuously deliver, they do so. That might be Arkansas this year. You got to be able to slow down Austin Simmons. You got to be able to slow down Lane Kiffin's offense. But if you do, I mean, the way that we are going to be talking about Arkansas football for what it can be, not what it will be, but what it can be, Night and day difference from what we thought it was going into week one a couple of weeks ago.
Bear, on that note, let's get into our picks, our previews, our predictions. You want the honors? You want me to go first?
I'll let you go first because I want to see where you're
going.
going.
I'm glad you're letting me, because the thing that's on the tip of my tongue is this. Just listening to you talk about the Hogs. It's the hope that kills us. It's the hope that kills you. If you're an Arkansas fan, really both these fan bases can resonate with that, because both of these fan bases are so used to being the bridesmaid and never the bride for very different reasons. Like we've said, Bear, you and I are both, if you missed best bets last night, you'll probably see it on social media at some point. You and I are both on the over. Yes, the number is 62.5. Yes, it's a little bit of a high number, but yes, I think it's going to smash the over. I think this is going to be one of the most entertaining games of the weekend. I think it's going to be a back and forth between two electric signal callers. I do like the matchup with Lane Kiffin going against T. Will for Arkansas. I like Bobby Petrino and Taylor Green and what they've done to this point. I think both running games are going to have a lot of success. I think this game is going to have a feel of whoever has the football last is going to win. But I think that team is going to be Ole Miss, Bear. I think the Rebels at home. Listen, you and I talked pre-show. I don't like the 8.5 number. Like, if I had to go one way or the other, I probably would bet Arkansas to cover 8.5. More than a touchdown feels like a little bit too much, because I think this game is going to be close, because I do believe in momentum. And Arkansas has, I don't care who they've played, they got a lot of positive momentum right now. I mean, that Arkansas State game was sold to us as, first ever meeting. This game's going to be competitive. Wasn't even remotely close. So, like, Arkansas is obviously playing right now with a ton of confidence, as they should, with the way they're playing. But I like the Ole Miss Rebels on the home field at night. I think Austin Simmons and company able to either it's them going to make one more play, or their defense will be able to get one more stop. Ole Miss hangs on for dear life in a game that I think we might leave Saturday, Bear, talking about as the most entertaining football game of the weekend. And I'll be totally honest with you too. I'm picking Ole Miss, but this game, to me, it scares me from the standpoint of it feels like just anything here can happen. That's why I'm not touching the spread. I'm just going with the total. This is when you take the total, you sit back, relax, and you just watch the fireworks commence, because there's going to be a ton of it. But, Bear, I am going with the Rebels. Ole Miss 45, Arkansas 38. I think it's going to be a shootout. I think this, again, could be the most entertaining game of the weekend. A lot of offense. I don't think either team probably leaves this game feeling great about their defense, but I think both quarterbacks ball, both running games will be productive. We're going to get big plays, big shots down the field. It's Ole Miss with, I'll say, one more stop late in the game at home to secure the victory.
I think this will be the most explosive game of the weekend. And this may end up being the most explosive game in college football for the month of September. You're going to have a lot of points. I think you're going to have a lot of plays that just are highlight reels. We're going to be coming back on here Sunday night and reacting to what was a spectacle out on the Grove and what was a game to remember. Like most of these games are to remember. Sometimes it's for a highlight play. Sometimes it's for a blowout that ends up being the reason why it catapults you to 10 wins. But this game always has bad blood. This game always has a little bit more to it. And this game always has a little bit of, I want to show the rest of the SEC why I deserve respect. 3 things I'm looking for in this matchup. Number 1, Austin Simmons, avoid the turnovers. You lead the SEC right now in interceptions. And you started off with 2 sluggish starts against Kentucky and also against Georgia State. Arkansas has an offense that's potent enough to be able to capitalize on those mistakes and put it into the end zone. Kentucky last week was able to capitalize on the mistakes and put it in the end zone. This team can do it in a more timely manner, and they don't need to get the turnovers. They can force a 3 and out and get those exact same points on the board because of what we have seen so far from what Taylor Green is. Number 2, can you get a more balanced approach, especially with the trickery plays if you're Arkansas? Arkansas really is good at running the football. They are phenomenal in between the trenches. They get those first downs. They can milk the time of possession, and then they take those deep shots down the field. Can you add a little bit of trickery in here? Because I think the thing that most people are looking at is Ole Miss plays a very balanced defense. They can be susceptible to giving up the big play. They can be susceptible for letting a running back boot, scoot, and boogie in the open field because of the missed tackling. Can you maybe get everybody to fall for an all-out blitz and then just take that shot down to a mega play, 55 yards, and he's walking into the end zone, basically doing the gritty? Could we see that? Because this is, in my opinion, for Ole Miss, you lose this game. It's not a great look for you. But for Arkansas, you have nothing to lose. People are already writing you off as a team that is just going to be in the bottom of the SEC. So prove to them, listen, if we're going to be in the bottom, we're going to have fun while doing it, or we're going to shut you up in the process. And number 3, can you pressure the quarterback if you are Ole Miss? Right now, the thing that was so evident last season that bailed the Rebels out of trouble in a lot of games was their defensive line getting after quarterbacks. They were number 2 in sacks. They were number 1 in tackles for losses. They were number 2 overall in college football in the run defense. Can you get back to that with this new revamped version of your defensive line? I don't know if that's going to happen. Here's what I do know. The line is ridiculous. The spread in favor of Ole Miss is ridiculous. Hammer the over. Take Arkansas with the points. But something about Lane Kiffin in this type of moment at his home turf with the players that he's brought into the portal, it just feels like they're going to be a little bit more prepared. I like Austin Simmons to find a Harrison Wallace, former Penn State wide receiver that played in the college football playoff semifinal last year for a late score. And I think this one is getting closer to 80 points. I love the over in this game. I got a final of 41-38. Ole Miss survives. But you walk away very impressed with Taylor Green. And you walk away very impressed with this overall Arkansas offense to know that they are going to get an upset or two. And they'll be right back to maybe even at 7-5.
Like I said, it's the hope that kills us one way or another. Bear and I both going with the Ole Miss Rebels to squeak one out on Saturday night in Oxford. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree? You going Rebels or Hogs when they square off at Vaught Hemingway Stadium? Guys, it's going to do it all for us. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Before we get out of here, do want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel, because as always, we're brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel has got you ready for the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. New customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets. If you win, that's right, pick a bet, bet $5. If it wins, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. You can build parlays, bet player props, ride the live lines, whatever your style. FanDuel's got you covered. The NFL season is here. The only question is, are you ready to play? Visit FanDuel.com/SECU to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Once again, FanDuel.com/SECU to get in on the action today. Guys, once again, we appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. As always, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast. Wherever you get your podcast, you can also find us across all social media platforms as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. For Cole the Bear Thompson, I'm Chris Phillips. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Y'all take care. Have a great rest of your day. We will talk to you all on the other side.